Welcome to the ArcFluence podcast, where we talk about how design impacts the way we live, work, and invest. I'm Nick Caracan, your host, and today with me, as usual, are my amazing co-hosts and business partners, Paul Fatkins and Nino Semerjic. Today we have a special guest, and he is also part of the ArcFluence team, Mario Peña. Mario, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
This is episode 17. And we're kind of going to explore a few things. The reason we have Mario on the show today is because
he's visiting.
You're in town. You're in town from Mexico.
Yeah, for the first time this year.
He's part of the team.
He is. I mentioned that.
too.
Yeah, and why not?
Yeah. We actually bring Mario every year, and for the last
This is the
third year.
Third year.
So
Yep.
Mario, you've been with us a long time.
I
You started with us in Nesters. And we transitioned you over to ArcFluence last year, and now you're finishing up your master's.
I am.
And
excited.
We're engaging lawyers about sponsoring you. We're planning a move to Columbus, Ohio. We're working on a lot of big stuff.
Right, yeah, no, it's happening now, yeah. We've been talking about it for a bit now, but yeah, it's happening.
And
Pretty excited.
we got you getting your hours for NCARB. We're working on getting licensure, and that's kind of the theme of today.
So we'll go back to the beginning.
Yeah.
Where did the connection happen?
I meant to ask the same question. Please
Yeah,
say
just
it.
like going right to the finish line.
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
Do
he's
you
good to
remember?
go.
Yeah, I mean, I did a job search on Google, and it was from ziprecruiter.com.
Mm-hmm.
And
So you posted
I
some
posted.
some ad trying to just find some drafter.
I remember 4 years ago at the time, it was like $700 some or something.
This is pre-ArcFluence, obviously.
Yes,
Yeah.
this
Yeah,
was back. This was back
Nesters,
Nesters,
yeah.
and it at the time that was a lot of money for me to just maybe get a few interviews and maybe find somebody that was going to help us grow our business. And I just remember like how that was such a struggle for me just to start looking for.
Every start of the business is hard. Go ahead.
yeah, I mean,
But what did you search for? Like, because you're not from Columbus right now.
yeah, no. I mean, at the time, I was just looking for, the pandemic was going on, so we're just looking for work from home kind of situation. And yeah, I mean, I
Work from home pre-COVID.
Pre-COVID.
Yeah,
Yeah, a
pre-COVID.
big distinction. And not only that, but you had just had your bachelor's and you really didn't have any intention on getting your master's at that point.
No, I did not. I mean, at the time, I mean, I did junior high school, and then some college over here in the States, and then went back to Mexico, got my architectural degree there, and that was it for me. I mean, I was just out on the working field,
Yeah, from the
Yeah.
school. Yeah, looking
Yeah.
for a job.
Exactly.
And were you at that time? Were you doing stuff like on the side yourself?
Yeah.
So like you had some clients yourself,
right.
and you were drawing some things like there.
Yep.
In your hometown.
Yeah, in Monterrey, I was doing stuff.
Monterrey.
Yep, I was doing stuff for clients over there, and then I got in contact with Nick, and I mean, time went on. I had one project and two projects from Nesters, and I was like, all right, that's time to like.
Did
get
you
this
already
up-
knew it
time.
Revit, or you actually learned the Revit through
It's-
Nesters?
Yeah, half and half. I got a gist of Revit when I was starting with the new projects, but for sure, I mean, at the time, I was learning Revit, learning the new Ohio building residential code at the time. So
Mhm.
it was like if I was doing drawings, I'll be reading the residential code, and then, all right, how do I do this in Revit? Why is it not turning out the way that I want to?
So is Mexico using a metric system or imperial or both?
Metric system.
Metric. So you have to
Oh,
switch
sweet.
over to
Yeah.
metric,
Yeah.
like me. Like, oh, snap.
Right.
What are these
Yeah, like-
things? Yeah.
We
The
had
rest
this
of the world.
conversation last night at dinner. Yeah.
I do want to call out that, you had a similar process.
Oh, jeez.
And, your long journey to citizenship.
Oh my
and,
goodness.
And everything else that all these hurdles you had to overcome just to get licensed and have this what is now an amazing career in architecture. And that's why I'm glad that you two can connect because I feel like
I feel like that's what I like. I really appreciate that, and this is why actually I don't want to sound too cliche or like whatever, but this is why I like working in the United States and having these awesome people around me, because it give me that opportunity. Because it was like it was a huge goal for me just to try something next in my life. You know what I'm saying? And I always, as a young kid, wanted to explore and always to put myself to be. In my previous firm, they say that like feeling comfortable to be uncomfortable. You know what I'm saying? So because this is the only way you can push yourself forward. And process was treacherous. I can tell you that. But what surfaces up on the top is you meet the people eventually. If you have a quality in what you're doing, you're gonna find the people who seeks for that quality, and doesn't matter where it comes from Africa, from Europe, from Mexico, from any other part of the world. And that's why for me it was like I think there has to be some kind of special process for a talented people to gather together, because they're just gonna bring the good.
Well, I encourage the diversity because
Yeah.
you grew up in your childhood was way different than mine.
Yeah.
Mario's childhood was way different than mine. We have a unique perspective that allows us to really, when we work together, to enrich that experience and that design that, our clients are going to have when they're in the spaces we're
And Nick,
creating.
it helps the economy.
Oh,
It
yeah.
helps the economy because you want to see the lack of this profession in many fields, and the only reason why United States is succeeding is through the immigration.
Yeah.
Because that's how you get the talents. That's a key. It's getting talents, and great things about you, Nick, is having that feeling and having that knowledge of recognizing the talent and bringing talent back to the home. And that's how you recognize Mario. I was like, I wanted this guy. I want him here.
I appreciate that. Thank
Yeah,
you.
and you did the same thing when we actually met in the studio. You're the first person coming to me because you recognize the talent. You recognize like, geez, I want to hang out with this guy. And I wish you have more people like you, honestly. That's you are pretty much a glue of all this endeavor that is now called ArcFluence. So thank you for that. Keep being like that. Yeah.
I don't think I can stop. So
Yeah.
don't worry about it. Well, I think that your stories are really important to the topic that we're going to be talking about today. And I can have Mario and Paul speak to a little bit more about this, but right now we're seeing some restrictions and some boundaries being, eased for architects to practice internationally. So if we're in the UK, if we get a project in the UK, it's much easier for an American architect now to practice over there.
Yeah.
If we have a project in Mexico, that border, that barrier is much easier to navigate now, and Mexican architects can now work in the US a lot easier. So we're seeing a few countries now and these organizations collaborate to now saying, hey, we recognize the fact that these diverse experiences are actually creating better architecture. And
It helps the profession.
I think it's part of what we're talking about. It's not like the main topic. We're not just going to talk about that.
Yeah.
It's a little bit about Mario's backstory and Nino's backstory. Because obviously Nino, you were an architect in your country before you came
Yes.
here, but it's not like he just transferred over and, oh, great, congratulations, I'm an architect here.
It was a long process.
Yeah. And it's changed over time, and there's been certain countries that have signed on with certain agreements in place to allow for an ease of transferring licensure across, borders. But even then, like, it's still a process that you have to go through. It's not just like, okay, I'm an architect now.
Yeah.
but it's possible.
Yeah,
it is a
And I
possible.
think that is opening doors to a brighter future where architects can be celebrated again.
Yes.
This is an important profession,
It
and we need to
is.
take it seriously. And
I mean, look at all these big changes that happened to American architecture after all these people from Bauhaus immigrated from Germany to the United States.
yes,
That was a big boom. I mean, Gropius is the one who actually started the Master of Architecture program just to put the architecture on a higher pedestal.
no, and when I was going through school 15 plus years ago, like, I felt special by participating in that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I feel like we lost a little bit of that lack
Yeah.
that luster,
Yeah.
and I think it's coming back. I think we are entering an age where architecture is going to be celebrated a lot more
Yeah.
again.
Yeah. I think our schooling does need to change a little bit, though, because it's like back in that time, there was a certain connection to reality,
Yeah.
right? And I think now it's like it's stretched so far to where pure fantasy.
Theoretical.
I know that kind of scares me a little bit.
Because like a lot of the
honestly.
people we even talk to now, where it's like, again, like Nick reached out and connected with Mario back then, but it's like if we reach out now and try and connect with somebody fresh out of school,
These recent interviews we've been having, like they just don't use the tools.
They don't know Revit. They don't know Revit.
Yeah,
I know.
Like,
They don't know.
Not even a little.
I know.
But
They're
they've had a class on it, but they couldn't draw a house if their life depended on it.
well, yeah, they don't understand basic, like even basic residential construction.
Yeah.
You remember our comprehensive studio? The first tool that we actually had to use, it was a Revit that we had to use in the comprehensive studio when we were back in Kent State.
Yeah.
And for a small firm, for any small firm and even mid-sized firm, it doesn't make sense to be like, okay, tell you what, I know you have the education, but you really didn't learn anything that's practical, so where we can profit from. So for us to take somebody in and teach them those skill sets, it's challenging for us, right?
Or having the will to learn like Mario was.
Right.
Honestly, I mean, that was like, that's another thing. It was like, it takes time, for example, with this, I had nothing about every generation bring quality in something. But some of these kiddos come to the firm, they thinking they know the world, and they don't understand they have to go from the basics to learn, and it's hard work. Unfortunately, it's not overnight, especially in this world of instant gratifications, and you want information right now, quick as possible. No, unfortunately, to be good in something, it takes time to learn. You have to devote yourself. And this is probably the major things that you recognize in Mario. That this guy doesn't want to give up. He wants to learn.
Well,
He set up the goals in his life.
When I emailed Mario, he responded. When I texted Mario, he responded. When I called Mario, he picked up the phone.
Yeah.
When I asked him when I read Mark's stuff, he didn't understand something, and he was very thoughtful also on the questions. We want to encourage communication and questioning, and we also say, hey, look, it's okay to make mistakes. You learn from that. It's actually a good thing. Just don't make the same mistake twice.
Yeah.
Right. So I think that eagerness, that ambition that you had, that willingness to learn,
passion.
really was like something that jumped out at me, even though you weren't necessarily as ready as I wanted you to be at the time. But you know what? You are now.
All right. Appreciate that. And I appreciate everything you guys are saying. And it's kind of like the drive that you want to learn something. I remember I learned about Revit first time in school, in sixth semester of the, and it was just for a class. And past that semester, I was going back to using AutoCAD, which, I mean, nothing wrong with that. It's just Revit is more time efficient at the end of the day. And I remember just being so like impressed with what you can do in Revit, and I wanted to keep learning. But I mean, it was just at that time, it's just you gotta go by yourself and learn it. You go to the forums and apply whatever you can read it.
What opportunities did you recognize working from the ArcFluence? Which was like a click, like in your mind? It was like, you know what, I would like to stay and working with these guys. What was the?
Yeah, I mean, all the attitude or like the way that I was working under Nick. Of course, Paul will revise my drawings. You did for a time, and if I had a question, I mean, it wasn't taken as you're like if I couldn't understand or I couldn't do it. You guys took the time to like explain the stuff and just a positive attitude of it and going back to the revised drawings. The
nice. Well, it's easier to mirror a positive attitude when we're greeted with one.
Yeah, exactly. You're such a good soul. You can tell that. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. It was, I remember, it was like at that time I was watching the Narcos, is one of my favorite shows. And my favorite actor, the character was actually Agent Peña. And I was like, oh yeah, Mario, Agent Peña, what's going on? I remember we talked like it was probably like past midnight and we were like online talking about the architecture.
Thank goodness for Narcos, otherwise you never would have made it.
Yeah.
Well, so let's dive into what you're getting your master's degree. What kind of spawned that, and where do you see that? Like
how everything started, how you decided to go on it. It was, I think it was three years ago. It was in my house. We were talking about all like four of us. So tell us a little bit more about it.
Sure. So the first time I came here, we were the topic of me moving to Columbus was already like on the table. I came here to talk and meet everyone in person and talk about that. And yeah, we came up with the
I think you had already decided it. You're like, oh, I'm going house shopping this week.
yeah.
Like, I'm
yeah,
going to a place to live.
places to where to visit, and yeah, I was like,
And then I think
It's-
Nino
it's a
was
process.
like, well, wait a minute,
Like-
wait a minute, wait a minute. On the brakes. Let's have a conversation here.
and masters is going to be something that is going to help out.
It was going to make
transfer
your
over.
path of least resistance, essentially.
Exactly. It's actually gonna help you in two things. The first is you're gonna get your paperwork much easier, because for all our listeners, if you're like in a higher have a higher education, you're a higher bracket for getting your green card, for example, which is much easier process if you have earned your degree in like a master, or if you have doctorate in something, much easier path. The second important path, because Mario, through this master program, is getting his needed accreditation and hours and points for his final accreditation in the United States to become the licensed architect. So Mario, maybe you can talk more about NCARB process, how things are going on, that your school is recognized by NCARB and all this.
Which we checked before you even applied to that college.
And that's for all young kiddos planning to be an architect. Please check if your school is NCARB accredited. So you go through these schools, you receive these points that are important to become tomorrow licensed architect.
Of course, yeah. I had to go back to my school, talk to the dean, and talk about all the architecture program and how that transfers over to the States. And if actually, it came down to choosing what master's program I like the best, which medical infrastructure is the one that I chose, because I thought
Welcome to the field.
I
Yeah.
appreciate that. Yeah, a lot to learn. That's what drove me to that master's program. I didn't know anything about medical infrastructure, so I wanted to learn about that. See what differences from residential, from commerce, what are the stuff that make it like go around.
And for those of you who don't know, Nino specializes in hospitals and
In healthcare architecture. Yeah.
And if you guys need any work in that field, feel free to reach out.
Feel free to reach out. ArcFluence can handle it for sure. Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, came down to that, and now Paul here is my mentor. He's the one that's approving my hours, and I'm at the stage where I'm putting the AXP hours in NCARB.
So EXP is, if you can explain that, it's an intern. What is the call that now?
The experience program.
Experience
Yeah,
program.
I forget what the A, but yeah, basically it's like your hours in all the different categories. So whether it's project management, construction documentation, design, design development.
NCARB was before only Canada, United States. Now NCARB is also including the Mexico in this process, and also does it include UK?
It just transfers.
These transfers. Okay.
Yeah, but Canada, Mexico, and yeah, it's
So NCARB is still a United States system.
Yeah.
But it's recognized, like there's transferring that is allowed between the UK, Canada, Mexico. Like
So actually recognize the accreditation.
there's still accreditations in other places with the other organizations, but now there's like there's a bridge basically.
There's
that
a
you can go.
reciprocity.
Yeah, reciprocity.
Yeah.
Because I know when I actually came in the United States, I have to actually get all my explanation of the credit how many credit hours, explanation of all curriculum that I was taking, then actually send that to they call it ESA evaluation process. They evaluate that. But the good thing is at the same time I was already in a master program at Kent State, which is also accredited NCARB program. So they have to actually go through all this check, do you have enough credit? What credits are missing? And then I was actually able to receive the letter from ESA and NCARB that I'm actually eligible now to take tests.
I
and
remember
become
that.
architect.
I remember how stressful that was.
It was a stressful process. It was.
So it's like if you were to do that today, you would have to do that same process.
Same process
Because
today.
it's only the UK, Canada, Mexico.
Exactly. So that's actually, these countries have a little bit more a privilege because they already adjusted their program, their curriculum in their universities toward the NCARB standards. Therefore, it's much easier to transfer this.
Yeah, now they changed the 10-year experience that you needed. They moved it down to
5
5 years.
5 years.
5 years.
And the same things in the States, for example, especially in Ohio, your bachelor is not enough. You have to go through the master program in order to like unlock that
Okay.
another level that it is needed for your path to get the
Right.
license.
Right. I didn't know that.
Yeah, otherwise you have to go to the another state that doesn't go, but Ohio is more stringent one.
Got it.
So
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah, and even I think if you do it then you can get NCARB certified if you were to do that to go to another state. And come
Exactly.
back and then, yeah.
And to tell everybody, the NCARD is the process that allows the architect to practice the architecture through all states of the United States, and now it's going to be easier to practice architecture in Canada and hopefully in Mexico too.
And just for a little bit more context, the NCAR process of getting, leading to being a licensed architect, it's not just working all these hours. I mean, it's what I would say probably on average, a 3-4 year process.
Hours, I think it's a little over, it's like 1,000 something. It's like a year and a
1,008.
half of time.
And then after that, there's
Full-time work.
There's a series of tests that you'll have to take. And a lot of times a firm will pay for those tests, assuming you pass. If you fail, then it's on the applicant. But once you pass all the tests, then you're now licensed in that state.
Do you know there used to be a rolling clock? So it's like if you took a test, you had to finish all the exams within a certain period of time, which I think was 5 years.
Yes, I was in that rolling clock.
Wow.
Yeah,
It's now it's gone.
and if you fail the test, you have to wait 6 months till
Yeah,
you take
that
it.
that one I think still exists.
Yeah,
But
is
as
it?
far as so like I could start a test today, pass it, and then 10 years later finish.
Yeah,
Like there's no time limit now on when you finish.
yeah, and
Because before it would be like if I went 5 years, that first test would expire and I'd have to retake it.
I think that's totally appropriate.
yeah,
Well, it's gone now.
Yeah. So,
Right.
well, no, I think it's appropriate not to have that.
yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
maybe.
I think it might motivate. It might motivate
Correct.
some.
I
Yeah,
think it
for
would help
licensure,
motivate.
but
Yeah.
at least that it gives a little more flexibility. But it'll also make the folks who are motivated shine a little bit.
Yeah. And most importantly, like in every profession, the key is experience. So you need to do these 3 years of, and you will see there's different areas because architecture is not just drafting. Architecture is way more than that. It's a management, it's a planning, it's God knows what. So you have to have experience in all these areas as a young fellow to learn about this.
Dealing with
profession.
clients,
Yeah.
sales, marketing.
That's a huge thing.
Yeah.
So that's a huge thing. I'm now like in project manager, which is more spending time with the clients, marketing.
You don't draw much anymore.
Here, yeah.
Neither do I.
Please. Yeah. Well, putting the budget together. So putting proposal together, going on interviews for a project.
Yeah.
These are key elements
Right.
that you're gonna learn through this profession.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah. Great. Great. What else we can talk about Mario and stuff?
Well, Mario is here for another few days. We've been working together. What do you think of Columbus?
I love it. Yeah, I've been
What do you love it about?
It's the I've been staying the mostly Short North, Grandview area, and there's a lot of always something to do. Always some place to be. I remember last year I was staying in the Short North area, and I was like a block away from the main avenue, which
High
is like
Street.
High Street. Yeah, I'm sorry. And go out to the coffee shops, and I tried a pizza place there, and they had like a Mexican lager there.
No, nice.
Yeah, and I found out it was brewed here in Columbus, just a local Mexican lager.
I'll tell you what, the Latino culture in Columbus is there.
It's growing.
It's huge.
Oh
It is,
yeah. I've seen some
Yeah.
videos. There's just like a
Yeah.
Latin festival.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah.
That's cool. Actually, the event for dinner was a Friday.
Oh, that was
Oh,
Oh
fun.
my
yeah.
goodness!
Really?
And we ended up having the mariachi singing. So it was such a good experience. Yeah.
It's a really good place. Yeah.
Yeah, Columbus in general. I mean, Columbus in general just has a ton going on.
Mhm.
Obviously, you decided a couple of years ago that you wanted to come here.
Sure.
That kind of set you on your path to what you're doing now.
Yeah.
But I mean, like, there's so much development, just not in Columbus, but also all the surrounding areas. So I think the opportunity here is just greater than anywhere else that you would end up,
Right.
landing. Because I know you have family in Texas as well, right?
Yeah. parents, my brother, and my sister-in-law, they're in Houston.
But
So
you're still choosing to come to Columbus.
So you mentioned it when we actually have that dinner. You mentioned it. You know what, Nina? I would like to get licensed in the United States, but also I don't want to give up my license in Mexico, which is a great thing. Just exploring the opportunity and spreading the business, especially with your connections that you're building up there and relationship. They're keys in this profession. Can you tell me a little bit more about the scene, architecture scene in Mexico?
Of course.
So yeah, just tell us what kind of obstacles you guys facing there. What is the your experience there? What typical buildings you're being involved in designing there, and overall, what is the scene in Mexico these days?
Sure. So I mostly did residential over in Monterrey as well, and I'd say Monterrey is going through a contemporary design type of architecture. Most homes are modern contemporary. And if any obstacles that I can think of is that we have some regulations that's supposed to be governed by the state, but still people are choosing to hire somebody who can go to the contractor instead of hiring an architect. And some of the obstacles that we face is most of the houses are not up to code. They're not somebody who's enforcing,
I see what you're saying. So that is the challenges for architects.
Code enforcement.
Yeah,
exactly.
And this is good. Shout out to all architects. They're complaining about codes and stuff. It's actually code helps you as an architect. Otherwise, people will just build stuff by themselves.
It helps society.
The normal, it helps. The reason for a code is a safety, for God's sake.
Granted, we can argue that some of it is a little
it is
strange.
Yeah, some of them are
some. But for the most part, good intentions.
Yeah.
So how you then manage it? So it's pure quality. Then you have to actually win this contract by that pure quality of design.
Right, and most of the times is whenever we get hired to we used to get hired for working on a house, it would be like, all right, what's wrong with it first, and we have to address that first before moving forward with submitting plans. Once the plans were submitted, all right, if somebody's gonna check, we're gonna have some inspectors, and once that process gets started, there's the people start getting involved, but you have to approach that. There's no inspector going through it and actually stopping by to see if you have all your permits in line, So I guess code is a big obstacle there, code enforcement, but that hasn't stopped
progress.
Many talented architects.
So Monterrey is the town that have some issues and difficulties with the water supply.
Oh,
yeah. So you mentioned that a couple times. We talk about it, how the architecture trying to solve that problem, and you're an architect. I mean, there is a sustainability. Climate is a little bit more. It's a hot and arid.
Yeah.
So shading is a big component, I will say. So how, these are many local challenges. You're going to see also in the United States, you have areas that struggle with the water supply. But here is probably more prominent because there are some other things. Of course, there is always corruption and everywhere. But tell us more how you guys as an architect trying to answer those challenges.
Of course. So luckily this year we had a really good raining season, so we're out of the drought. The state has all the...
How long did that drought last?
3 years.
My goodness gracious.
Yeah. It was bonkers there. Because
really?
We had it came up to a point where the water supply was being shut off at some neighborhoods for there was from 5 p.m. all the way to 6 a.m. you were not going to have waters in these specific zones of the city.
And I'm trying to wrap my head around that too, because we have some privileges
taking things for granted. Yeah.
But
here's in the Columbus area, because I think we have a lot of
exactly.
But we don't have to worry, if we're not in Arizona, we have to worry about water conservation or something like that.
But to really put it in perspective, I think out of all of Latin America, Monterrey is one of the more expensive cities. And now that impact, we're having this regulation, a good portion of the planet is now experiencing these types of
And
things.
especially, you probably have a lot of neighborhoods in Monterey not regulated at all.
Right. Yeah. No.
And people connecting to the network, not even paying attention, that may actually overwhelm the network or resources or reservoirs.
Right, yeah, and I guess it comes down again to zonification, a proper zonification, because we have, water drought and buildings, apartment complexes are still going up, and that hurts the neighborhoods around it, because that's water that have to be supplied to
Diverted
new residents.
To the new residents, because there is a growing demand,
Exactly.
but there is not enough resources
Exactly.
to actually support all these buildings being
Right.
built.
Right, which I know it's an important part of society to keep growing, to keep getting new people in, but you gotta have the resources, and if not, you gotta know how to tackle those. So going back to your question, I guess what most houses do is have like a water tank where they can like fill up the water and fill up the tank with water. So when the time comes with there's a water shortage, that's what you run your house
Emergency.
with. Yep.
So is it usually like a tank, something that is underground, or you just put it aside, or?
It's supposed to be. You can have it both. There are some houses that have the tank system in underground, and another on the rooftops.
On the rooftops,
So
yeah.
do these new contemporary designs have like water collection?
Oh, right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah. That's the goal as architects. For new projects to have a water collection system. So whenever it gets
So you have
rain-
a gray water actually that you
yeah.
can use for irrigations, for
Exactly. Yeah. So we
washing
can,
and
we can collect rainwater, filter it, and then go back to use it for washing dishes, the toilets, all the other stuff, and not drinking water. And of
So
course,
are the building in Monterey, so usually have like a flat roofs, or they usually
we
have
have
flat
flat roofs. Yep.
Do you guys utilize, do you see now the higher usage and demand on photovoltaic for the energy as
Exactly.
well?
Yeah. We're seeing more houses with rooftops covered in I think it's photo cells. Yep.
Photocells, yeah.
Solar
And-
panels.
Solar panels, and because raining season, we also get hurricane season. So on
really?
top of water shortages, we have some power supply shortages.
Oh,
as well.
really? Because of that?
So he had, I mean, even the U.S. recently experienced down in Texas,
Oh, yes.
millions and millions of people were out power for
Without power, yeah.
a week.
Yeah.
No, like a month.
Not
It
more.
was a huge thing,
Oh my
yeah.
goodness.
So they were doing like a rolling restoration. So they get a group online, but then the hardest hit area, it took like a month to come back
Jesus.
online.
Yeah. And I heard that because the Texas is the only system where it's actually separated from the overall American network.
I did hear
It's-
that.
Yeah, it's like an island. So it's like Hawaii has their own system,
Yeah.
but they're an island. Texas can connect to other people around them.
Okay,
but they-
Texas wants to be a Texas, yeah, and then pay price for it. Yeah.
I lived in Texas when I was in the Air Force, and I could tell you but there's a pride of being Texan.
Speaking of weather events, like when the cold weather came through there too,
right.
they had power issues as well. Because again, like the way their system is set up, it couldn't account for the cold weather that ended up coming through because they just didn't anticipate that it would happen. And then all of a sudden they had problems generating the power required.
And it's good things to know because what you have now in Monterey can actually happen in many places in the United States. This is just like what we're actually facing.
Well, weather patterns are global.
It's global.
It's not in your
changing.
community, and that's
Yeah.
it.
Right.
It's global and
If you
changing.
think about it, I mean, that kind of architecture is a little bit more greener to be sufficient on what you collect from rainwater and getting enough energy, like electricity from solar panels. And also we have some projects with instead of like just a concrete rooftop, we have garden rooftops.
Garden rooftop.
So
So
that
actually,
helps a lot with a temperature control.
Yeah, I think this is only helping architecture and culture in general. But like if you go back, 60, 70 years, 80 years, my parents, when they were young, they had a completely different mindset on how they used things, electricity, and how they dealt with garbage, how they dealt with all these different things. And we haven't fixed it all. I think that now we're coming to a pinching point to where we're going to be forced to make those decisions, even though it's more expensive.
They will be forced.
But eventually that the architecture is going to complement and actually not only are we to solve this problem, it's going to then be a net benefit. It's not going to be more expensive in the end because we're using these new technologies. And there's a lot of tax credits too that are being offered to implement this technology in residential, not just in the commercial space, which typically maybe 10 years ago is where we saw most of that, right? Now it's making its way into the residential sector because it's important and we need to address it.
So the city is growing as well in Mexico. So it's a high demand on a housing. The similar is. So do you see now the mixed use being more propagated or?
Definitely, yeah. We're seeing more mixed use zoning where it was mostly residential. So now they're doing replanning it, which is always sometimes a good thing. So, some neighborhoods are going like improving. Even the sidewalks, even the whole cables on the street. Now they're underground. You don't see any cables. There's nothing like visually contaminated. The roadways, so it has its ups, it has its downs, but definitely seeing more.
It's a process. I mean, we've had this conversation too, where the Mexican economy is one of the larger in the world. It's I think obviously U.S. being number one, or maybe we're fighting it out with China right now, but Mexico, last time I heard, was like 12th or 13th largest economy in the world. So you have there's a lot of purchasing power down, now, and a lot of this, talk about the cartels, but a lot of that money has now been infused into the next generation and has been put into legitimate businesses, and this economy is starting to hum. I do get the impression that I see these $1 million homes, these beautiful gated communities, and then right next door, we're going to see like a house that's $50,000, like, where the neighborhood's struggling, and it's right there in plain sight, right? It doesn't seem to be hidden like we seem to do here in the United States. We can hide those neighborhoods a little bit better or have a little bit more integration. So it is a problem that you guys, I'm sure, are recognizing and having to deal with, and there's some solutions there that you guys are working on, but that's just the reality of the situation.
Yeah, I mean,
so the main construction material. Go ahead, finish.
No, I was about
So
to
the
say
main construction material in Mexico is
concrete.
So yeah, so it's like it's same thing as in Europe. It's actually it's a more affordable, is easy to obtain, and
well, you're limited on your superstructures.
Exactly.
Well, not necessarily more sustainable though. Yeah. A lot of energy goes into
energy just being consumed into the concrete.
Yeah.
And also concrete also needs to be addressed by some kind of insulation, so you can actually keep it cold and also keep it warm during the winter months. So it comes with your benefits and drawbacks as well.
I think there's a lot of innovation that needs to happen in the construction industry in general. So, but without going down that rabbit hole, I know that the way we think about architecture, it is kind of a temporary thing. We talked about this with the falling water frequently, right?
Yeah.
Like we need to be able to grow and develop. So like, if we build a house, it's not meant to last for 1,000 years. It's meant to last for a generation, potentially, or two.
I will say 100 years usually, yeah.
And then hopefully, if everything's going well, we get the next iteration where we have development and growth, and something bigger is going in that footprint, rather than just this sprawl of consuming all of these forests and fields. And
exactly.
We should really start densifying these places for a healthier planet.
And when we say nothing against the concrete, it's a beautiful material, but everything has to be used from you don't want to have to be 100%. You have to also utilize the local materials. You have to trying to introduce recycled content into this concrete.
Right.
Also use the concrete it's really good to use concrete for a fire protection. It's inherited. So all the cores, you see, even I believe that the Ground Zero, that new tower, Liberty Tower, is actually now have all cores is actually poured in concrete, which is actually more safe and more secure.
It's an ingenious design. It's the if there were another disaster, the building now is designed to collapse in on itself.
Yeah.
And it has this tub that
Yeah.
contains.
It's a concrete tub, exactly.
It's solid.
It is.
It's really brilliant.
Yeah.
Great. Does Mexico use a lot of like a local? Is there like any Adobe architecture in the Mexico culture?
In the past, yes,
In the past, yes.
most houses that 1800s of the very first houses in Monterrey, they're made from Adobe bricks, and we're actually starting to like study, go back and study those houses to know how they tackle the temperature control, and we saw that with high ceilings and parapets that will cast a shadow onto the sidewalks for the pedestrians to walk in.
Or orientation, so the sun, during the day you're absorbing that heat, and during the night it releases it.
And since it's arid climates, you can use the natural ventilation a lot.
And these are all things that we shouldn't forget about. And I feel like sometimes we start to
or you're from a different area. I mean, in Columbus, Ohio, we're not thinking about this stuff, but like I did an internship in New Mexico, and they have Adobe, and I designed like a rammed earth, spa house, and it was like we just don't have that style of construction here because we don't necessarily have that sort of climate to support it.
We have a wood and a lot of it, and sometimes we just forgetting we took that for granted. But that's a good thing, how they actually utilize it. What is there? What sources you have in order to build yourself a shelter, later home, and on the end of residence.
Yeah, Mario, you seem to. I mean, it has been 4 years, but you've now been acclimated to the Midwest, the Columbus building code,
right?
So you kind of understand how a house is built here. What are your thoughts on that? Like, do you study the International Building Code? Like, because I know you were getting. I wouldn't even ask you, and you're reading up on this stuff, which is great because I don't even do that. I just reference the code when I need a question answered. And you've actually committed a lot of that to memory. Do you see the similarities? Any similarities between here and home? Do you reference the International Building Code? What are your thoughts on all that stuff?
Sure. So over here, it's like Nino said, most of the buildings or houses are made with wood. So there's definitely some differences, some similarities, where we are supposed to have insulation as well on the outer walls. Sometimes it's not up to whatever their references in the code. It's not enough for in order to tackle it, and they're still using old codes. The latest version is like a 1981 code, and
Really?
1981.
So everything right here in Columbus specifically, at least from what my perspective.
I thought 2019 was bad.
Yeah. And we're seeing a big push for like energy efficiency here. So you're saying, I suppose you don't have the demand down there you don't have the shifts in weather that we do. We experience all 4 seasons here where you pretty much...
But the problem is the government didn't catch up with that stuff. And that's a problem.
Yeah, in Monterrey, the seasons are shorter. Most of the year is summer. It's...
Do you find more expensive homes implementing things that are above and beyond code?
Definitely we see that.
Okay.
Yeah. So they recognize the need, and they're just doing it at the cost that they bear the cost to get it done right.
So Mick asked a very excellent question. You're getting familiar now with the codes and regulation in the United States. I can tell you also, like comparing to my home country, at least how it was when I was, it was same issues as it was in Mexico. Like not really implementation of the code. Code needed to be updated just to follow up the current trend and stuff. The same issues. Now looking at the 2 worlds, you already have a knowledge. One in Mexico, one in the United States. There's just like a border in between. What positives from the both world you can actually use, take advantage of these benefits and shape yourself as a good architect?
Sure, yes, really good question. So I guess from the U.S. kind of code that I've been using most over the past 4 years that I've been working with you guys, definitely I see the needed updated version of the residential building code, and some of the stuff like they're going from, I think we believe we were using R13 bad insulation on the outer walls, and then we moved up to R20. And I that's a good point. I do see some features or some like titles that are more targeted towards safety. And I think they kind of limit what they can limit what the architect wants to do at the end of the design. Because over in Mexico, I mean, we have a code, but it's not updated. It's not as regulated. But you can get away with more, a little bit more interior design, a little bit more like you don't have to have like open stairs are a big thing now in contemporary modern houses, which is something that you can do in the United States, but you don't see it, I guess, as much because of regulating.
Also, cost.
Definitely.
Yeah. So probably like what else like benefits of the in Mexico like which you can actually explore, put another level that kind of helps you that you will like to like what if it is when you come in the United States you're gonna come and live in the United States? What was like what was the reason you told me I will like still would like to keep my license in Mexico? Why did you say that? What you will like if I can bring something for Mexico, except that tres generación tequila.
Yeah.
Is there anything else?
It's really good stuff,
It
by
was
the way.
because like me and my wife, we were like a sit and talk. It was like and I tell her like you always have to look in a role like what are the benefits that you can bring from your home here that can make this society better? What is something that you can bring from the Mexico that all like three of us say like oh, geez, thank you, thank you, Mario, for coming and bringing this to us. So we didn't even think about it. What is that?
Sure. Yeah. So I wanna keep my upgrading my Mexican licensure there. Also because there are some talks, committees, and or forums that we get invited to for new technologies, and I see a lot of new concrete technologies going on in Mexico, new stuff
Yeah.
for concrete, and I'm not up to date on the latest concrete over in the US. But yeah, like you said, concrete is a good material.
It
but
is good material.
but you're kind of limited. And if we're gonna be using concrete in the United States, or for one project or another project, or we need concrete in there. So something I think I can implement, or get up like my idea into that project as well.
I can tell you, like two big hospitals I was involved with, they all have the concrete structure. It was much easier to achieve. It's much easier to achieve that 1A, the construction type.
Yep.
You need like a 3-hour rating and higher for that. It was more economical on the end to use it because the material itself has that inherited properties. You also can use the pre-tensioning, post-tensioning for a higher spans.
Right.
So you have less columns. You have much open the layout, so you can do more flexibility and stuff. And I'm glad because it's excellent actually answer, because you're already using this material much more than we actually using here. So there is all kinds of development, micro, the reinforcing. That's another thing. Lightweight concrete.
Oh yeah.
Then all these sustainable aggregates that you actually put in it.
Right.
Reusable concrete. So, yeah.
I would like to add to Mario's answer. We are seeing a large number of Americans buy vacation homes in Mexico.
Oh, yeah.
And ArcFluence is certainly able to help out with that at this point, with Mario being down there and
having the local knowledge and local, And also, that's one thing that I was like, it's what I like about Western world. It's a legislation, It's just like regulations that they keep developing, keep progressing. That actually it's not a burden. It's actually keeping us on a safe side and more like a regulated environment. Is less chaos that you have now, like building the 5-story residential building, and in an area when you don't have enough water supply. That's a recipe for disaster.
Oh yeah.
So you definitely can marry both worlds. Some good legislation you can actually bring to the maybe one day as a licensed architect in Mexico, you may be on a board or something and feel like, guys, look at what these guys are dealing for. They have 2024 code and we are still in 80s code.
Yeah.
So let's go and update. You can be one of the pioneers in local area that you can actually change the code and then just bring the architecture another level.
Definitely.
Yeah.
That's the goal. Is learn as much as I can. If I can help in other places, I'm happy to do it.
I admire you for that. You have had your nose down the last 4 years.
And
Just
learning a lot.
as much as you can, and that is how you're going to be better at your craft.
And you have a passion and you have a vision.
Yeah.
Get your school done. Congratulations for that.
Appreciate that.
Yeah, you got what, a semester left? You're
Just-
almost to the finish line, right?
Yeah, this semester I'm working on my thesis project, and that's it.
So what is your thesis project?
Sure. I initially started off with a second level hospital
Mm-hmm.
over in a town that I was supposed to get a thesis mentor.
Mm-hmm.
Not trying to throw any shade to the school, but I was supposed to get my mentor back in second semester, and by the time I needed to be to start working on my thesis in third semester, I hadn't gotten any mentor, so I had to like do it on my own with the help of my professors, of course, but that's just for the class. And yeah, by the time I got one, he took a look at it and he said it's a really good project, but the size of the town does not need a second level.
Doesn't support that type of.
So either you scale it down to a first level
downgrade,
hospital, or make a specialty clinic, or move it someplace else.
So it's like you have like a gradings of the hospital that you actually depends of the size of the community.
Exactly.
It's actually second grade. It means has more amenities in it. Then it's actually may have imaging, may have urgent care, may have all different. Well, since I'm being in healthcare for how very long, feel free to always.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, feel free to always. You can chat about it.
So we had a really fun talk the other night about this and over some margaritas. And
it was a good one.
So now your thesis is this behavioral health that is now, it gives you the freedom to pursue that design that you wanted to originally with this really cool outcome that's actually serving a need right now. That's not just in Mexico, but it's actually kind of a global
Definitely
thing.
Yeah, I mean, and that came up because I had to like either choose to do another site study.
But you had weeks of research and analysis at this point.
I was not ready to do that.
So what is going to be the majority population of the patients there? Is going to be addiction or?
Yes, it's going to be it's going to be focusing on drug addiction. That's what
that's a major topic.
Oh, I just want to go down this rabbit hole because this was so much fun for me.
Yeah.
We, talk about this is for those who are listening. This is what experience can bring, and putting in the thousands of hours and years of experience in a specific topic. But can you talk to me a little bit? Because I think Mario was just as excited as I was. Like, get into like, how are we designing these spaces? What are some circumstances now for specific patients that are in the space? Why are we thinking about things differently? We were talking about facing courtyards and really like activating spaces, and
it's all depends on a major populations that you have in institutions. I don't want to call it high cases, but if you just like it's just like a simple rehab. So your restrictions are less stringent. If you have much more severe cases, then the level goes up. Then you have like facilities with sally ports. Whenever you have like corridors between patient unit and the other public spaces, between patient unit and the courtyard, you have to have sally ports, which is for these people, they don't know, it's like a super secure vestibule.
And this is to protect not just the patients themselves, but also the people that are, both parties, all parties.
Exactly. You have actually protected both staff and patients from the other patients. And also you have to protect the global population from the patients as well. because the reason you have a sally ports in these higher institutions is because the tendency of tailgating. So someone can hide behind someone's back and just bypass the security.
I know when I worked at Google, when we swipe in,
Yes,
they briefed us, make sure no one's tailgating, no one's following
exactly.
you in.
Because when you activate the car reader, it's gonna give you a couple seconds of open door.
Yeah.
So and you can just like as soon as you close the door behind you, or actually door is still quietly open, someone can just put their foot in
we
the
had
door and keep it open.
we had a retail situation where it's similar thing. Security was an
Mhm.
issue, and they actually called the space a man trap
Mhm.
because you had to go through a series of doors. It wasn't just a single door where somebody could then sneak in behind
Yeah.
you.
And we were talking about safety, like life safety too. But one thing that popped out in my head was if concrete's such a commonly used material, but we're having these concrete exposed walls, but that's a hazard to these patients and even just people in general in some
Yeah.
cases. So we now
can
have this
be-
impact protection.
We have like for example, there is a special impact protecting or impact resistant drywalls that be used sometimes because that is a little bit on high cost. I believe that it's cost going down. Before we use like 2 layers of the regular drywall, it's actually helping
Well, that's
to
less expensive.
yeah,
right?
let's and
This
amortizate
similar
like do the
zone.
amortization of the impact. It
Yeah.
kind of helps the person not. But yeah, it's all depends of the type of the care that is proposed in this building, and once again, you have to be. It's a tons of experience, years of the experience, dealing with different outcomes, dealing with the new like eureka moments, like why we didn't do this.
Well, interviewing the doctors to find out
Or-
how they actually operate in the space.
Or and they always gonna bring you some unique cases. You know why we actually doing the redoing, because of that, and that.
This happened. And
Yeah.
Yes,
And this is why.
Yeah.
and this is exactly why. And some of those stories are really like
Eye-opening.
eye-opening, head-scratching,
Yeah.
items.
And it's
So,
something that you couldn't foresee when you originally designed
Yeah.
the structure.
hunter ligature, everything has to be to prevent people from harming themselves.
Yeah.
Doors on a showers cannot be straight. It has to be like angled,
Slanted.
slanted, exactly, so people cannot harm themselves.
Windowsills.
Window cells, so they cannot actually depict they cannot pull out like a portion of the wall or a trim, because everything can be a weapon
Yeah, so
against themselves and usually against themselves.
Right.
Usually they're trying to harm themselves.
I guess
Yeah.
my point to all this is that when we're designing spaces, it goes so much more.
Oh yeah,
It goes so much farther than space planning.
exactly.
Yeah.
You have to have and there's like in a healthcare, there is on top of the regular OBC or IBC, there is the NFPA 101 life safety code. So there is all kind of different regulation. It just happens you may actually have to, as a part of the hospital, design the heliodrome, the helipad. So you have to know the aviation standards and protocols. So you have to understand when we actually designed the garage next to the riverside hospital, we have to understand the major path of the air transport, airlift.
And the path that we're creating
Exactly.
is going to save lives. Like,
exactly.
so you're
And you cannot-
forcing that action.
Cannot create the obstruction,
Right.
especially
Right.
so yeah, this is all cool stuff. Before we end, Mario, can you tell us something meaningful in Spanish?
Aprendan todo lo que puedan de arquitectura no solamente regional, también arquitectura fuera de México. Sigan aprendiendo lo que no saben, lo que les interese, aprendan, ya sea YouTube, ya sea foros, aprendan y encuentren algo para aplicarlo. Eso es algo que va a ir creciendo, o sea, va a alimentar la curiosidad y persíganla, o sea, hasta que lo puedan dominar.
You guys, Mario,
Yeah.
I'm so glad you're here this week. I think next time you come back, you might not be going back.
I know, right?
At least not for a while.
Yeah.
We're gonna
Yeah.
do some, hopefully, house shopping, if not apartment shopping for you.
Yeah.
And I'm really excited for the coming years.
I'm excited to be here as well.
Great. Great to have you here, man.
Thank you guys. Thank you.
Well, that concludes episode 17.
Yes.
And we'll see you guys in 2 weeks. Until then, take care of yourself.
This has been the ArcFluence podcast. As always, you can get more information and additional content on arcfluence.com. Please subscribe on the platform of your choice and leave us a review. We'd love to hear from you.